Here's the shroud as you can see it now. These are burn holes. And these are patches that the nuns put on. Here you can see the frontal image of Jesus and the dorsal image. Remember how I showed you in the earlier, one of the first slides, how Jesus was laid in the cloth. The image only resides on the inside of the cloth. There is no image on the outside of the cloth. The fire burns, the blood stains, the water stains from putting out the fire of 1532 do go to the outside of the cloth. But the image only resides on the inside. And so here you can see these burn marks, these scorch burns, occurred from a fire. As I told you, the Protestants were trying to drive the Catholic Duke of Savoy out of his territory, and they will succeed. They set his church on fire. That fire is 960 degrees centigrade. How do we know that? Simple. It's the melting point of silver, and the casket that the shroud is in is made of silver, and it's melting. And the piece of silver is catching the shroud on fire, causing these gigantic burns and scorch marks. Two Franciscans come in, grab the cloth, grab its casket, and don't ask me how they did that. Could you imagine grabbing a casket that's on fire at 960 degrees? That's a miracle. And they take it and they douse the casket with water, and you could see the water stains cascading through the shroud. Guys, this is 100% linen. What should have happened to this cloth in that fire? Should have disintegrated, but it didn't. That's known as a miracle. Now, these patches were put on by the Poor Clares of Assisi in 1534 at the request of Pope Clement VII. The Poor Clares would take altar cloths and sew these patches on their knees, crying. And the Mother Superior of the convent wrote, "It's as if we had a looking glass in time at our Savior's wounds." They did not need science to tell them whose cloth this was. I have 13 pages of research of saints who surround this cloth. They understood instinctually, long before science understood whose cloth this was. Now, there's a reason, and I'm going to explain this to you, of what's actually going on in this cloth and why it's so faint to us like this. A phenomenon has occurred on this cloth. The best answer we can give in science is this. The phenomenon is known as flash photolysis. Flash photolysis won't occur in mankind's history until a special event in World War II. It's called Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And you all know what happened to those poor people in those cities. They were vaporized, the people at Ground Zero. Not a piece of hair, not a piece of flesh, no bone, no blood, no clothing was left of them. But something did remain. Their shadows, their images were left on the ground. They absorbed all the X-rays and gamma rays, and the rest of the area was flooded in light, and their images are cast on the ground. Don't believe me? Get on the internet. Nagasaki has a home site dedicated to these people because they're so anti-war. And while that is an uncontrolled, chaotic event, on the Shroud of Turin, it's a completely controlled event. What do we mean by that? There's no north, east, south, or west image. There's only a frontal and dorsal image. And this is what I'm trying to explain to you. There's no top of the head image, even though the cloth is covering the head. There's only a water stain there. And you can see how the water is cascaded through the cloth because it was folded up. So that's an enigma for science. And yet, look how clear he looks there. My friends, this is your gift of what Jesus, not Steve, but what Jesus has left you. Here he is. I believe if he would have given us one more nanosecond as he went from his passion, death body to his glorious resurrected body, one more nanosecond, those eyes would be open. But he chose not to. Here's the back image. You can see how incredible he's been scourged from head to foot. You can see there isn't a mark on him, not one area of his body that has not been scourged and beaten by a Roman flagellation device. This is also a three-dimensionality from the VP8 image analyzer. When they had the chance, they discovered that not only did the face have three-dimensionality, but the entire frontal and dorsal image has three-dimensionality. Don't worry about it. Some guy in 1355 was able to put this together. It's okay. It's all right. Now, this is the most important factor I can tell you about the Shroud of Turin. They were trying to figure out what the shroud was made of. So they decided, let's put some spotlights behind the shroud. This is our good friend Barry Schwartz, who was raised as an Orthodox Jew. Barry was at the Dallas conference with us, and Barry has been to the Shroud Center many times, and Barry will tell anyone who wants to hear him as an Orthodox Jew, he'll tell you that this cloth is Jesus, the Son of God and Messiah of Israel. You cannot do that to an Orthodox Jew. This cloth can. Why? This is Barry's photograph. He knows. He put his spotlights behind the head of Christ and spotlights behind the legs of Christ. And as light was transmitting through the shroud, they discovered that the shroud's image is of a substanceless nature. There is nothing there. Nothing. Here is a substance, blood. Here's a substance, water. Here's the substance, the patches the nuns put on. Here's Barry's lights, top and bottom. Where's the image that we see on the negative photograph or the positive photograph? It's gone. I have a simple scientific question for anyone in the audience. Is paint a substance? Where is it? Who are these people who dare tell you the Shroud of Turin is a painting? I don't have any problem with anyone who says they don't want to believe this is Jesus' burial cloth. That's their human free will choice. No problem there. Even the Catholic Church has no doctrine or dogma requiring you to believe that this is Jesus' burial cloth. You can walk out of here tonight and say, I had a really nice time, but that guy's nuts. Now, but my point to you is, how dare they tell you it's a painting? That is a lie. Because it's scientific. Here's Dr. Sam Pellicore. He's going to examine the shroud with an electron microscope, a pretty powerful object, and he's going to discover what makes the image up. And here it is. This is from the National Geographic. Here you can see the blood stains. Here are the blood stains that make up part of the image. But notice here, there are dark fibers and light fibers. And what scientists discovered, Dr. John Heller and Dr. Alan Adler discovered, and by the way, Dr. Adler was raised as an Orthodox Jew. And Dr. Adler told me in 1983 when I met him that he couldn't wait to get his hands on that Catholic relic and take that forgery and dump it into the dustbin of history where it belongs. I'd say Dr. Heller was a little prejudiced when he approached the shroud, wouldn't you? Dr. Heller told me he now knows the shroud is authentic. He told me that in 1983. Why? Because he and Dr. Adler discovered that these fibers that are darkened right here have had all the water and oxygen taken out of them in a process science doesn't understand nor can duplicate. They've been dehydrated and oxidated. It's as if you took my left arm and took all the water and oxygen out of my left arm, left my right arm alone. My left arm would look rapidly aged and all shriveled up. Right arm would look normal. That's what's happened to 1/500th of an inch. The very root of your hair have been dehydrated and oxidated on the Shroud of Turin. And they give you that faint, ghostly image. And when you take a photograph of those dark fibers, what color do they become on a photographic negative? Light. Dark becomes light, light becomes dark. The shroud's image is not made up of paint. It's made up of these 4 factors. Dehydrated, oxidated linen, human blood, some sort of X-ray information, which I'll prove in a little bit, and finally, a coronal discharge, a burst of radiant light. That's what makes up the shroud's image. Now, science can't tell you it's the resurrection of Christ for 2 simple reasons. Science wasn't in the tomb with Jesus when the event occurred, and science has never seen a resurrected body before. So science can only open up the door, look in, and peer in and go, we think it's maybe the resurrection of Jesus.